throw anything in the chat. Hello, welcome. So we are going to, like I said, go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone to the September meeting. If you could hit the next slide. So just real quick, we'll go over today's agenda. We'll do a quick get to know a member, and for that part, feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand or something that will call on you. It's a really simple question, nothing scary. We just want to say hi, get to know people, and not always just have the same faces on the team. And then today we've got two presentations, one from Alex and one from Vince. We're going to be talking about Tableau CRM, and then Vince is going to be talking about more of like the creative business side, kind of how to manage a lot of those things. And then if there's time, we'll do best thing I learned / group therapy. And that is basically if you have a question or maybe want to know about best practices for something, feel free to throw it out there. Again, raise your hand, let us know if you do have a question for that. And if you go to the next slide, please. Okay, so just real quick, talking about some upcoming events in the analytics community, specifically the Twin Cities area. So coming up next on October 12th is She Talks Data. This is a group for women primarily who are in data analytics world. This one is in person at Lila, and it's a really great, fun opportunity to get some hors d'oeuvres and drink some wine and just have some good conversation, meet some really cool people. The next one is going to be that other analytics tool that shall not be named. Just kidding. Power BI meetup. There are some great people there too. Plus you get surly beer. So how terrible can it be? Next, League of Data Leaders. This one is geared a little more towards people who are kind of leaders at their community, or people making more of like business type decisions as opposed to like the analyst technical level. But again, everyone's open. It's open to everyone. That one is online as well. Our next Tableau user group is going to be the 28th. We're still trying to figure out where that one's going to be. Hopefully going to be doing a hybrid one again. So again, bear with us if we have any technical issues for that one. And then the big call out is going to be November 9th through the 11th, which is the Tableau Conference. So you can go to the next slide. So if you have never been, the Tableau Conference is 100% free. It's 100% virtual this year. And I've listed the dates and times. It's November 9th through the 11th. And so what's cool about that is that if you have a couple hours free here and there during the workday, you can always pop on, see a cool session, and then go back to your regular work. So what is going to be talked about? There's going to be lots of demos. They usually talk about new features that are coming out or kind of in the works. Lots of Tableau Zen Masters, and every level of content is going to be talked about. There's Tableau Doctors, which is you can set up a session with someone who's like an expert in Tableau. So if you've got like a really, really technical, like I need to do a deep dive with someone, that's the opportunity. There's also brain dates, which is kind of like mini Zoom meetings, I guess you could say. It's just like usually 4 or 5 people that get together and talk about a topic. The topic is predetermined, and so you do need to sign up for those. And then there is also this year going to be a Slack channel, so not quite sure what to expect for that, but hopefully it'll be cool to be able to talk and connect with other people. And then as well as the Iron Viz competition, which is competitive dashboarding, as I like to call it, where basically there's 3 people that build a dashboard based off of a data set that they already have, and they just try and do it live. And so that's a really cool event, really cool way to see people be highlighted in the community. And so again, register for that event. Put the link in there. If you just Google Tableau Conference, it'll come up too. And I think that's all I have for events. If you have an event or want to shout out something, please let us know. If there's something we missed, give a second to unmute to say hello to everyone who joined. Feel free to throw it in the chat if you think of something later or got like a link to sign up. But next we will do get to know a member. We go to the next slide. Would anyone like to volunteer for Get to Know a Member? Again, very simple question. Just want to say hi. If not, I'm gonna call on someone. All right, do you want to come over here and we'll just do it that way, slightly faster. All right.
Hello.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, that works. Hi, my name is James Zervies. I'm also part of Tessellation, and I've been using Tableau for quite a while, probably like 10 years now. Before here, I worked at healthcare, often for a bit, but yeah, getting to build cool stuff in Tableau is the highlight of any given day that I have. So happy to be here and in part of the group.
Thanks for volunteering. I think we can, someone in the chat says that's a sweet shirt. It is a sweet shirt.
It is.
I love wearing that shirt because it's very like, I am a data nerd. Like when I wear it. Yes. Okay, so I think we'll do that one and we'll maybe save another one for switching in between curricular content. So I'm gonna have Alex come up and give a presentation about Tableau CRM. And we'll take it from there. Again, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. Might not hear you if you don't unmute yourself. So.
Alrighty. Hello, everyone. My name is Alex. I'm a consultant at Tessellation, and I'll be talking about Tableau CRM today. So here is the agenda for the meeting. So I'll begin by giving a brief overview of Salesforce. Then I'll go through a demo that I put together that showcases different features within Tableau CRM. And I'll talk about why you want to use Tableau CRM. I'll answer some common questions that I've heard about Tableau CRM, and then I'll provide some resources for you to get started on your own Tableau CRM journey. So before I begin, it's easier to ask people in the room, but just out of curiosity, who here uses or has used Salesforce? Okay. Only one person. How about Tableau CRM? Because I'm going to use Tableau CRM, I've seen that in Salesforce. It's a little different, yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'm glad I have this slide then. So just based on that feedback, not a lot of people here have used Salesforce. So what is Salesforce? It is a cloud-based customer relationship management software platform. And really what that means is it's essentially what it is a database with a fancy user interface on the top of it. So this image on the bottom left kind of shows the underlying data model of Salesforce. So here's our contact object, our account object, and our opportunity object. And then there are different fields within each object, and they are related to one another. So then if you look at this image on the right, this is what the user interface of Salesforce looks like. So here we can look at a specific account record, and we can see the contacts and the opportunities that are associated with that specific account. So really it's pretty much just like a super customizable database that customer-facing teams use to manage interactions with their customers. And the reason why I preface with a brief Salesforce overview is Tableau CRM is an application built on top of Salesforce. And it's an end-to-end analytics solution with data management, data visualization, and data science capabilities. And so, with that being said, I'm going to go through a quick demo that just showcases some of these features within Tableau CRM. So this is my Salesforce instance. And so for this demo, we're going to pretend that I am a salesperson and I have a handful of open opportunities, just like these. but I have limited time. And so I need to figure out how to best prioritize my workload so that I can spend most of my time focused on the opportunities that I'm most likely to win. So to do this, I'm going to build a predictive analytics model within Tableau CRM. And then we are going to visualize the results of that predictive model. We're going to embed all of this within Salesforce so that our sales team can access all of this data directly within the work environment. So to begin, I'll just give a quick overview of the data that I'm going to be connecting to within Salesforce. So here are opportunities. So if I just look at a random opportunity, this is all just made up data. If you go into the details tab, you can see different information about this opportunity. So you can see, the source of this opportunity, what type it is, the amount of the opportunity. You can see what stage the opportunity is in, and you can also see the account that this opportunity is aligned to. And then if you click on this account, you can see information about the specific account. So things like annual revenue of this account, what industry the account belongs to, and the number of employees within this account. So we're going to use Tableau CRM to connect to data within the opportunity and the account object. And then we're going to build a data set from those two sources. And then we're going to use that data source to create a predictive model that's going to give us a probability of the likelihood that we are going to win specific opportunity. So we're going to open up Tableau CRM. So you click this app launcher, and then you can open up Analytics Studio, and that will bring you to the Tableau CRM homepage. And so we're going to begin with data management and building a data set. So to access that, you click this data manager button down here, and it'll open a new tab. And so what data manager allows you to do is connect to different data sources, schedule data refreshes. You can prepare your data for analysis using two data preparation tools, and then you can just monitor the status of all your jobs. So we're going to start by looking at this Connect tab. So if you want to connect to a data source, you can click this Connect to Data button, and you can add an input connection, and this shows you all of the different connections that you can make to bring data into Tableau CRM. So you can connect directly to your Salesforce environment using the Salesforce connector. But you can also connect to data warehouses like Amazon Redshift, Google BigQuery. You can connect to Marketing Cloud. You can connect to different databases, ERP systems, as well as different external applications. And so once you make a connection, it'll show up in this Connect tab. And so the data sources I'm going to be using, I've already made connections to. As I mentioned before, we'll be looking at the account object and the opportunity object. And so if you just look at these, I've just selected a bunch of fields from these objects that I'm going to bring in to build the data set. And so once you've established the connection, you can schedule your data to be refreshed by clicking this drop down here, scheduling a refresh, and choosing a cadence that you'd like to refresh your data. Okay, so now that we have our data connected and it's in Tableau CRM, now we want to prepare it so that we can build a predictive model from it. So there are two data preparation tools. Both are visual interfaces. One is a data flow and one is a recipe. I'm not going to get into the differences between the two tools today, but essentially if you've used Tableau Prep, recipes are very similar to the Tableau Prep workflow builder. So here we are going to join our account and opportunity data. And as I showed before, the opportunity records are linked to an account. So we're able to join these data sets on the account ID. which is what I've done here. And then we're gonna filter, and we're only going to keep opportunities that are closed. And then we're gonna output this as a data set. We're gonna store it in an app called TCTUG, which I created. So I'm not gonna run this since I already did prior to this, but this is just kind of how you build different data sets. And there are also different things you can do. You can transform your data, so you can write conditional statements, you can aggregate it, you can make predictions directly within your recipe builder, and you can also append and join data sets. So now we're going to go find this data set that I built within the app that I created. What an app is just a way to organize all of your different Tableau CRM creations. So if we go, right now we're within the TCTG app. If we go to data sets, we'll see the opportunity data set. And so if you click on a data set, you're able to explore the data within that by using what's called a lens, and that's just automatically pops up when you click on the data set. And a lens just lets you visually explore data. So you can view the data within your data set as a table, or you can create different visualizations from that data by selecting different dimensions and measures similar to Tableau. And then you can save these lenses and share them with Salesforce. Doing is building a predictive model using this data set. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a story. So by selecting this drop down, you'll see create story. What a story is just a way to build the foundation of your data model or of your predictive model. So you select the outcome variable that you'd like to predict, and then you select your input variables, and then you can choose the type of model that you want to use. And so I've already built a story, which I'll open up here, and I'll just click edit so you can kind of see what went into it. But basically what we're trying to predict is the likelihood that an opportunity will be won. So that is our outcome variable, this one field. And then I've selected different input variables that we're going to use to make that prediction. So those variables or those different fields are on both the account and opportunity object. So within the opportunity object, we're looking at different things like the type of opportunity, the source of the opportunity, and the amount of the opportunity. And then within the account, we're going to feed in data around, the industry that the account belongs to, how many employees are there, and the annual revenue of that account. So those are our input variables. And then up here, you can choose an algorithm that you want to use, or you can run it through model tournament, and that will automatically predict the best performing algorithm for you to use. So once you build your story, this is the view that you'll be taken to. And this just gives you descriptive insights about your data. So it shows you your input variables and their correlation to the chosen outcome variable in order of statistical significance. And you can see just different insights about your data. And then if you go into this model tab, you can check model performance. You can take a look at the different predictions that Einstein used, or that Einstein came up with. And most importantly, you can also deploy your model. That is what we are going to do. If you click this drop down, you can deploy your model. And so we're going to deploy this as a new model. And we're going to just call it TCTG. And so you have two options when deploying a model. You can either deploy it without connecting to a Salesforce object, And then you could run it while you're in like a recipe or one of the data preparation tools, or you can deploy your model directly within a Salesforce object. And then, so we're going to deploy it within the opportunity object because we want our predictions to show up at the opportunity record level. One thing to note is that if you're going to deploy a model to a specific Salesforce object, your input variables need to be able to be mapped back to fields within Salesforce. So these fields were automatically mapped because they're fields on the opportunity object. These three were not mapped because they come from the account object. So we have to manually map these, and we're able to map them because the opportunity object and the account object are related to one another. So I'm just going to quickly map these. All right. So now that we've mapped everything, we can create a new field in Salesforce that will store all of our individual predictions. So we are going to call this TCTUV. Next, we can set up a way for Einstein to monitor the accuracy of the model. And so to do that, basically you have to define the conditions of where the outcome variable will be stored, where it reaches terminal state. And so we're predicting when the field 1 equals true within the opportunity object. So that's what we're going to plug in here. 1 has to equal true. You can apply different filters to your data set. So if you only want to run this model on opportunities within a specific region or within the division within your organization, you can do so here. We're going to select no because we don't want to filter our data set. And then here you can choose different variables for Einstein to give you prescriptive insights. So if I chose lead source, Einstein might say this opportunity has a 75% chance of being 1. However, if you change the lead source to webinar, the percent likelihood that this opportunity will be 1 would increase to 80%. When you're choosing your variables here, you want to make sure that you select variables that you have the ability to control. So it wouldn't make sense if I selected this employee variable because I'm not able to actually change the number of employees that work at a specific account. Just for demo purposes, I'll just select a few random ones. And now we can deploy this model. And that is what Einstein is doing. So now that we have deployed a model, I'll show you how to embed it within Salesforce. So here we have an open opportunity with different fields populated. If we want to know the likelihood that this specific opportunity will be 1, we can click this setup button, and then we can edit this page. And this brings us to the Lightning App Builder, which lets us edit the page view. And down here, you'll see that there's an Einstein prediction component. And we can drag this over here, and we can choose a model that we deployed. So we choose the win likelihood model, and then you can click save, and you can activate it. Now, if we go back to our opportunity record, there's a prediction for this record here. And what it's doing is taking the values from our input variables. So some of these fields on the opportunity object, and then some of the fields within this specific account. And then it's outputting the likelihood that we're going to win this opportunity. So this is saying that there's an 83% chance that we're going to win this opportunity. So this is one way to embed Predictive Insights directly within Salesforce. Now I'll show you how to build a visualization from this data. So if I go back to the data manager where we built our training data set, we are going to build a data set that's made up of our opportunities that have not closed yet, and then we're going to run predictions on those opportunities. So it's pretty similar to what we did before, where we're joining our opportunity and our account data on the account ID. Then I'm going to filter this data set so that we're only looking at opportunities that are open. And then we can run our model on this data set. And then you'll see a preview of the data. And there's the predicted score right over here. And then we can output this data set back into our TCTUG app. So I've already run this. So if we go back to the TCTUG app and we look at our data sets, we have this opportunity predictions data set, which is storing all of our predictions. So now if we want to build a visualization from this, we can click on the data set and we can build a visualization by selecting different dimensions and measures. We can save it and we can add it to a dashboard. I've built a pretty basic dashboard already, which I'll open up, which is connected to the data set that we just built. So here you'll see these are our prediction values and these are our opportunities. So we have 192 open opportunities, all of which have been predicted. And then you can see the average opportunity amount and then a table view of our data. And then you can filter your opportunities by the industry that they're within. So if you want to look at like our apparel opportunities, you can filter that. You can also add additional filters based on like who owns the specific record. You can filter by the stage that the opportunity is in. So if we're satisfied with this dashboard, now I'll show you how to embed it within Salesforce, just like we did with the predictions. So this is our home page. So if we edit this page, we can scroll down to components and you'll see that there's a Tableau CRM dashboard component. So we drag this on the canvas. We choose the dashboard that we want there, and then we can adjust the height. And click save. Now you'll see that the dashboard that I was just using in Tableau CRM is now embedded within the home page of Salesforce. So once this reloads, now there's a dashboard on the home page. So this just is a way to deliver insights directly to your Salesforce users. So in this case, we're delivering a prediction based on how likely an opportunity is to be won, and we're delivering these insights directly to our sales team while they're working in Salesforce. So let's say I am looking at my opportunities, and I'm looking at them within this stage. So if I see an opportunity that I want to spend my time focused on, I can click this opportunity now, and I can click open record. And then it'll bring me directly to that record. So it also makes your data actionable directly within the Salesforce environment. And from there, you can see the prediction score for this opportunity. So now I'm going to head back to presentation. Okay. I'm waiting for it to catch up. All right. So based on that demo, hopefully You can understand potential use cases for Tableau CRM and why it's an important solution within the Tableau product. And really, Tableau CRM's primary value proposition is the ability to deliver actionable insights directly to your Salesforce users within their work environment. So this way, like your sales team doesn't need to leave Salesforce to access a report that has data that they need. They can get all that data delivered to them directly within Salesforce. And this can help increase productivity, data-driven decision-making within your organization, and it can decrease the time it takes to analyze information. So some common questions I get asked about Tableau and Tableau CRM I've listed here. The first is, how do I choose between Tableau and Tableau CRM? The answer to that depends on who is going to be using the end product. So if you're putting together a visualization that is going to be accessed by multiple departments throughout the organization, Tableau is probably the best solution for you. However, if the end product is going to be built for teams that are customer facing, that spend the majority of their time within Salesforce, Tableau CRM is a great solution to get those insights to your customer facing teams directly within the tool that they spend the majority of their time in. Another question I get asked a lot is, can you use Tableau and Tableau CRM together? The answer is kind of. You can purchase licenses to both products and use them for separate use cases. But if you want to build a singular solution using both tools, you kind of can. So within Tableau Prep, you can make predictions within your workflow using Einstein, which is what we used in Tableau CRM to make our predictions. You can also export we go back to Connect in Tableau CRM. You can also build Tableau CRM data sets, and you can output these data sets to different systems, one of which is Tableau Online. So these are two ways that you can connect the platforms. However, I anticipate that there will be more and more connections as the relationship between Salesforce and Tableau matures. And then the last question I get asked a lot is, Tableau CRM free? And it's not, unfortunately. So if your organization pays for Salesforce licenses, if you want to use Tableau CRM, you have to pay for additional Tableau CRM licenses. You can buy a license that gets you access to just Einstein to make predictions, or you can buy a license for just Tableau CRM, which gives you data management and data visualization capabilities. And then lastly, you can buy a license that gives you access to both Tableau CRM and Einstein. So you get the end-to-end solution with one license. So lastly, I wanted to provide some resources in case you wanted to embark on your own Tableau CRM journey. The first one is a link to a page that lets you sign up for your own Tableau CRM enabled Salesforce instance. So you just plug in some information, then you can get your own Salesforce instance with Tableau CRM in it. And that's what I used for the demo. The second resource is Trailhead. And this is Salesforce's learning platform. So if I type in Tableau CRM here, there will be a bunch of great content and modules within Trailhead that teaches you how to use the platform and gives you different projects so you can build up your skill set. And that is all I have. Are there any questions? Oh, yeah. This Tableau CRM supports the web data connectors. And really, the only connectors that you can use within Tableau CRM right now are these connectors. So you can access like databases, data warehouses, external applications. There aren't really any web connectors in here. There is a MuleSoft connector. So if you have experience with MuleSoft, you can use that as a middleware to connect to different data storage systems. And then there's also an external API. So you can feed data into Tableau CRM using that, but there's not any specific like web connectors that are configurable within Data Manager at this time. Any other questions before
I've got a question, Alex.
Yep.
First off, this is awesome. Fantastic resource and great material. So awesome work on that front. I was curious when you were pulling in the opportunity likelihood dashboard into web page and you had that configured. I'm curious if you've ever had to implement role level security across platforms into those dashboards. So like, for instance, if that opportunity had like 200 different opportunities, but that's across an entire organization, and you only wanted a salesperson to see the opportunities that they're directly responsible for, is there a way to implement cross-platform row level security fairly easily?
Yes, that's a great question. And that was something that I wanted to touch on, but I forgot to. The great thing about, sorry, I keep forgetting to repeat questions. The answer is, can you implement row level security, cross-platform row level security into your Tableau CRM dashboards? So I had that opportunity dashboard. It showed all the opportunities regardless of the owner of those opportunities. The question is, can that data be filtered so it only shows the person who's viewing the dashboard their own opportunities? And the answer is yes. Since Tableau CRM is built on top of Salesforce, it inherits all of Salesforce's security. So you can set up different, basically you can set up what's called sharing inheritance or security predicates. And those are different ways to enforce security within your Tableau CRM dashboards and data sets. And it'll basically sharing inheritance just uses the same security that you already have set up in Salesforce. So if I'm a salesperson and I go into opportunity object and I can only see my opportunities, then when I'm viewing a dashboard of opportunities, I'll only see the opportunities that I own.
Perfect.
Awesome. Any other questions? Alrighty. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you again. I think that's cool whenever you can get something, you know, that's more of a one-stop shop. You don't have to send your salespeople everywhere or to one dashboard look for one thing, one dashboard look for another thing. So very cool. If you didn't notice, I see there's some blogs put in the chat. So again, check those out. I think, like everyone said, there's going to be a lot of opportunity, a lot of growth as Salesforce kind of absorbs Tableau and all that fun stuff. So good stuff coming. All right, so next up we got James. Ready? Sweet. And then just for you guys in the room, if you need the restrooms, they're past the kitchenette and kind of to the left. So again.
All right. Turn this off screen a little bit.
I'm still plugging in.
That's the rule for being in person. Thanks, everybody, for sticking with us during this experiment into the realm of hybrid presenting. It's a unique challenge for everybody, and I'm glad to see that it's working well so far. So I will do my best to address both the people in the room as well as the camera as an equal and valued member of our collective community here. So thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Vince, and I am honored to talk to you guys today about something that means a lot to me. Yes. It says I'm screen sharing. I don't know how to make it more screen sharing. See, this is what I'm talking about. Like we're learning together. How did you do screen share that put it on here too? Oh, man. I miss the good old days. Yeah. Hold with us for just a second. All right, we'll edit this part out and we'll script. Okay. All right. I think we're set. I think the white balance of the laptop is doing just fine. So thank you for your patience, guys. Continuing on, in the past, I've had the ability and the privilege to speak about things like perspective, about the power of community, about the importance of humility in asking for help, and about leveraging psychological vulnerabilities to tell the most impactful stories possible. But today I get to tackle a new subject, and one that, if I get it right, has the chance to not only make you a better analyst, but might also bring you some clarity and new appreciation for where you are in life. So let me start by introducing myself. Like I said, my name is Vince, and I'm a senior consultant for Doherty Business Solutions. I've been in the data industry for almost 10 years, and I was just elected to my third term as a Tableau Ambassador. I live in Minnesota here with my wife, my 3 sons, and my new puppy, Libby. Life is busy, full of distractions, loud, wild, and I wouldn't trade a single second of it. In many ways, I think the method by which we develop as creative people mirrors the way that we develop through life in general. Today, I'd like to explore an idea that Swiss psychologist Carl Jung came up with back in 1960 when he talked about life being, in a broad sense, split into 2 halves. He likened it to a day where in the morning, the sun will rise, and at some point it reaches a midpoint, right? A zenith in the sky where the sun sits at its highest point, and then it starts to move on into the second half of the day, the afternoon. If we can think of life through this metaphor, then I expect that we can view our creative journeys this way too. With a broad enough picture, I believe that we can learn to read the signposts along the way about where we are, what to expect as our perspective shifts, and where to look for inspiration and energy. Now, Jung explains why it's so crucial to know where you are in this journey when he says that we cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning. For what was great in the morning will be little at evening, and what in the evening was true will it become alive, or what in the morning was true will it become alive. Now, as with several of my other talks that lean a little philosophical, this isn't a takeaway simply for those who spend their days doing data visualization. It's for anybody who does anything creative, whether that thing is writing, cooking, music, filmmaking, teaching, or anything else like that. Our journeys, broadly speaking, evolve in these two halves, and if we can learn to see them for what they are, then we can absorb the insight and the goodness out of each stage and learn to move on when it's the right time. So let's unpack Jung's idea a little bit. Now, he says that we all start in the morning of life, and that in this morning, the important things to us are the things like defining a sense of self and finding personal success. In this stage, we seek to carve out a little social space for ourselves and work out who we are in relation to the people directly around us, right? And we want to begin building a successful career for ourselves and to be seen as professionals. And there's nothing wrong with that. We all start in that place, and I believe that we all should start in that place. Now, this is where our sense of ego is formed as well. We develop this idea of self-worth as we begin to find the natural place that our unique puzzle piece fits into. And although it's dangerous, we start to get a sense of our impact, both good and bad, on the people and the work around us. It's in the morning of our lives where we begin to make a lot of really important decisions for ourselves. We think about things like, where do we want to live? What kind of person we want to be, what kind of house we would like to have one day, what kind of car we would like to drive, what sort of person do we want to partner with, do we want children one day, what do we want our lives to look like? We start to make decisions about what we believe broadly as well. What do we think about society? How do we think it should be run? What do our personal politics look like? Do we factor things like spirituality into the way we see the world? What's our philosophy about life? One of my favorite authors, Richard Rohr, uses the analogy of building a box at this stage of our lives that we use to contain all of the ideas that we have about life, the universe, and everything, and how things work. So what does the morning of our creative journey look like? Well, it's the same, really, isn't it? We're trying to map out and define these aspects in exactly the same sort of ways. We're trying to work out what our unique perspective is, our style. What are those little things that are going to make our work immediately recognizable as our own? We build these ideas of what our ideal job looks like too, and the kind of people that we want to surround ourselves with. To quote a famous mid-20th century television baron, here's some simple advice. Always be yourself. Never take yourself too seriously, and beware of advice from experts, pigs, and members of parliament. Kermit the Frog. Now, in this stage, we begin to obsess about things like techniques and tricks, and we try to teach ourselves all of these little hacks to get our tools to do exactly what we want them to do. We test out every different style imaginable. We spend a lot of time focusing on the latest shiny tool or update. We pore over as many blog posts and podcasts and YouTube videos and books and forums and conversation threads as possible. We dive in head first and we thrive on just loading up our mental bandwidth on all of these things, and that's a good thing. This is absolutely the right time to be a sponge for new information and ideas. We start to look at the work that a lot of other artists are doing that we really respect. And we occasionally will steal tiny pieces of their work or their methodology, and we begin to incorporate it into what we are doing to help define our own personal style and to put out work that we believe represents exactly who we are in creative form. The mornings of our creative journey can be really, really exciting times. Form that we've chosen. We're trying lots of different things out, and all of that potential of what our work could be and could look like down the road is right in front of us for the taking. But it can also be a frustrating time because it's hard to grab that potential. It always seems to be slipping through our fingers. And if you're like me when I was starting out, I looked at so many tutorials trying to find these magic techniques so that everything would just snap into place, right? And my work would finally look like what I imagined it to be, or imagined that it could be. And I'd look at tutorials and I'd find myself thinking, oh, if I just got, Figma or Procreate or Illustrator or whatever else, then my work would really pop. right? I began doing all sorts of mental gymnastics to try and figure out how I'd be able to afford licenses for all of these things. But it never quite seemed to snap into place the way that I wanted it to. So let's take my first full Tableau public viz that I published, for example. Now, I did this relatively early in the morning of my journey, and I poured every trick I had into this one small dashboard. Pseudo neomorphism card design, non-standard shapes, a custom image for the title, hybrid floating and tiled layout, aggregate and disaggregate data visualization, dashboard actions, non-weight background, URL hyperlinks, you name it. If I knew how to do it, I poured it into this, right? And I was convinced that although I wasn't sure what sort of style I was going for, one of these techniques was bound to unlock some sort of hidden and undiscovered sense of self, and that was the potential that I was at. Now, in all this, I was hoping to find some kind of, quick win formula that I could just apply like a filter to all of my work, and that it would become my signature, the style that made people view my work as valuable and worthy of their attention. So of course, when I look back at the morning of my journey now, I can see what a mess I was making, but it was an absolutely necessary mess, because I don't know any other way to teach yourself in any art form than to try a little bit of everything and to see what sticks. To start choosing for and against different techniques is you start to take some distance from it and you look back and decide whether you actually like what you've done. Now, in the end, continuing to do this will start to slowly emerge a more mature style. This is all the work of the morning, all of that exciting experimentation and refining and honing what it is that you actually want to be. I look back at my own stage and I realize how essential this stage was and how much I learned from that time, even from the stuff that I left on the cutting room floor. I also recall how desperately impatient I was for results. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate. So how do you know when you're reaching that end of your first half, that morning, and you've arrived at high noon? Now, Carl Jung was the first to talk about the midlife crisis. And he talked about using this analogy of reaching the end of the morning and the sun reaching its highest point in the sky. And he said that that point was characterized by a lot of questioning, right? Questions about, what have I built in that first half? What did I construct in the morning? And was it really what I wanted? Have I made the right decisions, or have I made mistakes in my choices? What does it all mean? And reaching that high noon point in life can be a very scary moment because, we're full of doubt and questioning, and there's this internal war going on where we look at everything that we've built and we start to wonder, do I actually like the person that I've constructed? More often than not, I think the answer to that is going to be, well, a lot of it, no, I don't like, and I know that I need to change it. A lot of us are very scared of change. We often reach that high noon because of some specific crisis that happens to us, that triggers it, right? Maybe it's losing a job or losing a relationship that's really significant to us. And what we do is we reach into this box, this metaphorical box of answers that we built for ourselves in the first part of life. That box that contains everything that we believe about life and the way that things should work. So we open it up, we start to reach into it to pull our answers and to help us through this crisis. But we have to be honest with ourselves and accept and admit that none of those answers specifically help our pain anymore. It just doesn't work. This for everybody can be a really scary moment, and some people handle it better than others. I mean, we have this stereotypical idea of, the middle-aged man who hits a midlife crisis and he starts acting a bit confused and he goes out and he buys a motorcycle and he leaves his partner for a younger person because he thinks that his confusion is going to be answered by just rearranging these superficial details of his life, instead of admitting to himself deep down that everything he's built inside doesn't necessarily work anymore. And that's where the work really needs to be done. Now, others might go into complete denial and admit that what they built no longer works. And I think I feel like that leads to internalizing everything, and it can turn into bitterness, especially down the road into your later years. I've seen this happen with people late in their career where they haven't admitted to themselves that the way that they used to do their job simply doesn't work as well as it used to. And they're so convinced that their tried and true methodology is the only right one, and they automatically close off to anything new. And they don't want to face the reality of their own shortcomings. Startup entrepreneurs and project managers unfortunately seem particularly vulnerable to this. But the best of us, when we reach that high noon point in life, take it as our cue to move into the afternoon, to close the chapter on the morning of our lives, and to gracefully shift our perspective. So what does noon look like on your creative journey? Well, I think it's exactly the same. It's us looking at everything that we've built in the morning of our creative journey and realizing that no matter how many techniques we threw at it, and no matter how many blogs we read, and no matter how many tweets we bookmarked to help us find our perfect style, it hasn't quite delivered us the success that we want with our work, however we choose to define that success. And we start to admit to ourselves that we're not getting the dream result we hoped for, or we're not as popular as we want to be, or we're not making the kind of money that we planned. Perhaps we're not really proud of where we ended up or the work that we had built, and maybe spending so much time chasing those quick wins to impress other people may not have been the right approach. Maybe it's okay to reassess and to take a step back, right? And to start building something deeper and more meaningful. For my own journey, it wasn't really a specific event that ushered in this high noon phase, but more of a creeping realization that my work wasn't heading in the direction that I wanted it to go. And I'd look by work by Zach Bowers or Lindsay Poulter or Diego Parker, and I'd be so envious of how they managed to balance elegance and impact in their work. And I had to be honest with myself. And I had to admit that I didn't like the style of my own work, and that perhaps many of those techniques that I was using were simply to impress other people, rather than it being a tool to really produce meaningful work to me. So I had to face the reality that all of those years spent experimenting and discovering had only landed me in a place where I didn't like my own style, where it didn't feel meaningful, where I was constantly criticizing my own work for being too fussy and overly complicated and a whole other litany of faults. It was an incredibly frustrating and admittedly scary point for me. Now, perhaps some of you can relate to this, but this point was the only time, the one and only time that I thought, it might be nice to just walk away from this thing altogether. Like the midlife crisis, maybe I could just take this as an opportunity to secretly overcompensate and run out and completely reinvent myself once again, to try and regain that feeling of youth and to go into denial about the dead end that I hit, or to shut out those people who would question the direction that my path had led. Thankfully, though, I knew about this two halves dynamic, and I took the opportunity to read the signposts and realize that the afternoon of my journey was right around the corner. So what does the afternoon of our journey look like? Well, Jung talked about it being characterized by a greater openness where we don't necessarily feel the need to desperately define things neatly anymore. We're more able to hold paradigms, and we don't have to put things into neat boxes, and we start to slowly and patiently question what we've built in life's morning. And we start to let go of those things that, if we're honest with ourselves, didn't really work. We also start to simplify our lives. And as we look around at all of the things that we built in life's morning, we can start to see the things that were just designed to show off and shout about who we are and what we do in relation to everything else around us, the things that were designed to get people's attention. In the second half of life, that's not really as important to us as it was in the first half. So we start to let go of some of that stuff without feeling like we're missing out. We get a better sense for what actually is meaningful to us and what we should build into the longer term. Now, to those around us who make it to the afternoon of their journey, and not everyone does, by the way, they become the sages, the village elders of our community. They're the ones who have let go of their bag of tricks, and they're no longer really trying to define and let you know who they are. They're unthreatened, and they're able to be there for others in really important and profound and meaningful ways. This is really, really highlighted in areas like mentorship, and it's one of the particular aspects of the Tableau community that I feel sets it apart from all the others. Now, for me, this stage of my journey comes with a sense of clarity, a sense of deliberation in what I create. And while it may not be as flashy as most of the stuff out there, it holds more meaning to me. The things that I produce now are things that, on average, I'm more proud of because I've let go of this idea that more is inherently better. I don't want it to sound like I've got it all figured out. I definitely don't. But my perspective is one that I wouldn't have if I hadn't gone through this morning phase of my journey. And you have to be patient with yourself. Don't try to rush through the morning because it's not wasted time. It's building a foundation and a security that will make the rest of your journey much more worth it. That morning time may take years. It certainly did for me. But everything that you build in terms of knowledge and all those techniques go with you in the second half of life. And you can still tap into that knowledge when you need it. So enjoy where you're at. There is no good or bad stage. Both are absolutely essential to a career and a journey that brings you joy and meaning and value. Don't give up when you hit that high noon point, because it's at that point that so many people throw in the towel. If you find yourself thinking, I've worked so hard and so long, but I'm not seeing the results that I want at all. I'm not the person that I thought that I would be by this point. Remember the words of Winston Churchill when he said that if you're going through hell, keep going. The next stage is going to be deeper, better, and absolutely worth it. Now, I thought quite a bit about how to illustrate this concept of the two halves of our journey through the medium of data visualization. And I thought that since I'd already shown a viz that I had built from the morning of my journey, perhaps I could show how I would approach building something from my current perspective, one that I feel is just at the onset of the afternoon in my journey. So let's head into Tableau and go through a viz that I built to answer the question, how does this year compare to last? So this is a dashboard that I had built with that in mind, right? How do I present data analytics in a clean and meaningful and simple way? So we'll go through these one by one. To start, I wanted a dashboard that I knew was going to be smaller because I wanted it to appeal to my audience, whether they were on a 27-inch widescreen or a tablet. I wanted something that could reach people where they were without being too cluttered or anything like that. And I intentionally built this without a filter tray, which I normally have to do for all of my work stuff, but I wanted something that encouraged some interaction too. And so this whole dashboard is built to kind of filter as you click around and to still tell this story in a clear and meaningful way. So I'll go through the various components of this one by one, and then kind of wrap up. So I started by building a header that I knew was going to contain the two aspects of my data that I wanted my users to be able to filter out. And so let's see if I can. But I basically brought segment and region out on columns, and I put a single space on text so that all of these would be nice and evenly spaced. And then I used my filtering my formatting of the background color to emphasize that these were sort of two different tiers, a sort of hierarchy within the data that I wanted my users to be able to use as a filter. Moving on, this was kind of the bulk of the visualization. This is where I had spent the most time. And I wanted to show bars for where the current or the most up-to-date sales figures were, and I wanted to use a Gantt bar for where the previous ones were. And so I built a couple calculations just to isolate the values for those 2 years and to compare them one against the other. When I built this, I specifically called out 2 of the years, although you could certainly parameterize this and build this in as another component of the dashboard that the user would be able to click on to select their years. The line chart was one that looks a little bit different when it's in a worksheet versus when it's in the dashboard. But again, this is where I isolated the 2 years that I was focused on. And I wanted it to be as clean as possible. And so I wanted to make sure that I annotated one of the points. And in annotating the points, I felt that it wasn't necessary to have things like grid lines on here, or even in this case, I took a chance and took the axis off altogether, because once you have those 2 numbers, those 2 values of the endpoints, you can start to get a feel for what those other values might be. And if you're curious about more detail, you have the entire second half of the visualization to paint it in a little bit better picture. One of the techniques that I used on this that I found myself using quite a lot when my work started to become more streamlined was a calculation that looks at the entire window of data and only shows the last point, right? And that's this most recent sales. It's a table calculation that basically just says sum of sales equals running max of the sum of sales. Or excuse me, I had that for a different one. This is if last equals 0. Let's take a look at this, because this is one of my favorite really quick and easy calculations to use. Yeah, so this looks at the entire window of data, and if the point that it's looking at is the last point, then return the sum of sales. Otherwise, it's just going to return a null. Right, and so I put that as a secondary axis, and I synchronized it so that it just gives us a really nice, clean endpoint there. And I had right-clicked that point, and I had created an annotation on that point, because I knew ultimately in my visualization that I wanted these 2 areas for the call-out numbers. And I matched the border of those to the line that it was relevant to. And that was really all there was to that particular point. And finally, I created a months segment, because I knew that the top half of the dashboard and the bottom half of the dashboard were going to follow the same visual, the same horizontal time period. By putting that right in the middle of the visualization, everything just kind of lines up nice and neat. So, is this the perfect dashboard? No, absolutely not. Is it ideal and super, super elegant? No, honestly, probably not. I think there's ways that I could definitely improve on this. But would I have been able to build something like this in the first half of my journey? No. And I wouldn't be able to build things like this in the first half of my journey without going through that messy part that I talked about earlier. Right? That was the necessary growing phase. That was my awkward phase before I started to get my feet under me and realize what was okay to remove and still preserve this idea of the story that you're trying to tell with data. So I wanted to thank you guys. I know that there are a lot of other things that you could have been doing today, but you chose to make time for this, and that's important to me. I really appreciate that. So thank you. Was that shut up for questions? Anybody's done? Yeah, silence is a good thing. Thank you guys.
Very cool. I didn't know I was going to be getting a therapy session today, but I was
When you talk to me, it's always there.
yeah. Very true. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate what you said. I think a lot of probably like a lot of people, 2020 kind of forced me to think about my prioritization of different things, and like you said, that life is a journey, and that we kind of go through different phases, and I appreciate, what you've done for the Tableau community, and I feel the same way that, maybe you did at the beginning of like, I look at the Iron Biz people and I think there's no, like, I can't even like think of that as a, not like, how do I build it technically, but how do I build it creatively, all those kinds of things. But like you said, it just takes time and experience, and you don't necessarily know what is going to be useful later on. It's very much, you gotta, just put the work in and learn the rules, and then learn how to break the rules later on in life, I guess. Okay, well, with that, I know we've got about 15 minutes left, and so I just wanted to open it up to the group, whether in person or you guys online. Does anyone have any questions or best thing I learned? Any Tableau Zen Master tricks? Put it on the spot. Yeah. For those of you online. Luke, our Tableau Zen Master, resident Zen Master, wrote a new book. Do you want to talk about it at all? Like, I'll give you a free plug, 2-second plug. You want to come up?
I wrote the book with another Zen Master, and the idea of the book is the concepts are a little more advanced, I guess, but we try to make it basic at the beginning, basic-ish. But the intent is to create examples that are based in our real life experiences and not in the hypothetical what charts could you make, but really like what should you be making. So it's a copy. It's a very rare copy, by the way, because it's in black and white, and all the new ones that are coming out are in colors, so you'll get an early version. But there's links in the black and white version to see color images online. So got a few extras later on for everyone to as a result. I mean, if you want to find
All right. Okay, well, just again, throwing it out there to anyone online. Do you guys have any questions, or any you guys in the room? Any questions or any cool things you've learned lately? Oh, yes. Nick is saying who to reach out to if you want to be a speaker. We are always looking for new presenters, whether that's super technical topics like Alex talked about, or more theoretical and business related, like yes.
I can present next time, and I can actually give away 5
Ooh.
if I present in
All right. Well, you're hearing it now. Luke is saying he's going to give away some copies, digital copies of his book. So be sure to show up to probably the next one if he's present, whichever one he ends up presenting on. Okay. Well, yeah. If you have anything that you want to talk about, or even just an idea for a topic, if you're like, hey, I want to learn more about this, but I don't know anything about it, but someone should present about it, feel free to reach out to me or Vince, or the rest of us. If you sign up on the Tableau page, there's the leaders that list everyone down at the bottom. But yeah, otherwise I think we'll call it a little bit early, and thanks again to everyone for dealing with our technical issues and our hybrid issues. Is very fun. I'm glad that we could do something in person as well as help out all you guys online as well. And I hope to see everyone again, either in person or virtually. So thank you. Goodbye, everyone online.